Hi there, I'm Peter Zollman. I'm a co-host of the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast.
And I'm Steven Rothberg, and I guess that makes me the other co-host.
Every other week, we're joined by guests from the world's leading job sites.
Together, we analyze news about general, niche, and aggregator job board and recruitment marketplaces sites.
Make sure you sign up and subscribe today.
Hey, it's Libby DeLucian. If you're sick of business advice that sounds cute but doesn't actually move the needle forward, this one's for you. The Libby DeLucian podcast is where we go one layer deep. No gurus, no glitter, just straight up unfiltered talk about scaling a business, running a household, and holding on to your sanity in the middle of the chaos. If you're the bottleneck in your business or in your own life, I'll show you how to fix it. Simple, tactical, and one layer deep every time. Let's go. Visit libbyd.com and check out our podcast today.
Hey, this is Steven Rothberg with College Recruiter. I am the founder and chief visionary officer. And at College Recruiter, we believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career, and it should be easy and inexpensive for employers to hire them. I'm the host of the High Volume Hiring Podcast, which you're here watching. So hopefully you're in the right place at the right time. And I'm super excited today to have as a guest, Simon Wingate. He is the managing director of read.co.uk. Simon, maybe you can tell the viewers like a little bit about Read, how read.co.uk fits into that, kind of like who you are, how you got into this crazy industry, all of that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. So yes, of course. So as you mentioned, I'm managing director of read.co.uk. So we're part of the wider Read group of recruitment businesses, very well known in the UK. We're the, I guess, longest standing job site in the UK. We started in 1995 as the website of the recruitment agency business. And then in 2007, decided to stand on our own 2 feet. So we've got 250,000 jobs on our website from lots of different direct employers and recruitment agencies. So I've got an interesting perspective on recruitment because I run a job site, but I'm also part of a wider group of companies that includes one of the UK's leading recruitment agencies. So it's an interesting position and perspective, hopefully, that I can offer.
Yeah, exactly. And for exactly that background, that's why I wanted to have you as a guest. I couldn't think of anybody who could address this topic better, and also in kind of an unbiased way, right? Because you want people to use the staffing company when it makes sense. You want them to use the job board where it makes sense, or both. So it's not about putting down staffing or agencies or job boards. It's great. Also for the listeners, when they hear 1995. I think it's important to know, well, first of all, that you beat us by a year, so I hate you. But more importantly, that is the era right when browsers became actually kind of usable, and you started to have like graphics on websites that didn't take forever to download. The web became usable for people right at that time. Yahoo was just launching. Google didn't launch until 98. So, you beat Google by 3 years. It's a different era. It's really remarkable. So I had a few questions for you that we can hopefully address. So starting high and digging in, at high level, when employers are facing challenges, like what are some of the challenges that you see employers having when it comes to hiring? At a fairly high level?
Sure. So I think we're in a very interesting market in the UK at the moment. We've been through obviously turbulent times, as everyone has over the last couple of years. And last year there was this huge jobs boom. So there was record number of jobs live across the board, not just on our site, but across the market generally. But an interesting lack of activity really from candidates. So there was lots of huge amounts of jobs, so huge amounts of demand, less supply than people would expect last year. What we're seeing at the moment is that slightly changing. So we're seeing that the job volume has decreased in the UK compared to this time last year, and candidate activity seems to be opening up. So guess what that creates for employers is an interesting marketplace whereby there is more activity because there are more people on the market now looking for jobs than there were before. So I think there's probably a couple of real challenges that employers are facing, and this is certainly what I hear from our customers. The first is that speed to candidate is incredibly important. So, you know, if there is a valuable candidate with highly required skills in the market, they will have lots of recruiters, direct employers as well, calling them up where they found their CV or have applied for a job, looking to take. There's a real importance for A, services like ours, but B, also for employers and recruitment agencies to create an environment whereby they can find candidates quickly. So, you know, the days of having a huge wealth of candidates and being able to kind of cherry pick, I don't think are necessarily where we are at the moment. There's a real necessity to get to candidates fast. I think that's one thing which is incredibly important. And I think the other challenges that we hear a lot about is around skills shortages. So it doesn't matter, you know, in my 23 years doing jobs like this, I've heard,
which is weird
because
skills. You're only 19 years old, right?
Well,
so...
thank you for saying so. Thank you for saying so. But there's been skill shortages in all areas over the years. But I think what's become particularly acute in the last few years is a real lack of talent within technology roles in particular, but also social care, hospitality, lots of roles which actually we would previously have seen an ability for organizations to be able to fill those jobs quite quickly, maybe post-Brexit, post-COVID. You know, it's a very different employment market in the UK as it was than it was then. So there are real areas or pockets in the market where skills are very, very hard to find. So there's a real challenge if you're looking for niche skills, then actually, again, don't just get to the candidates fast, but having a real understanding of what are the core capabilities that you're looking for, where are those candidates, what's the best place for me to go and find them. I think they're real challenges that a lot of employers are having at the moment. Yeah.
And geographically, right, it can make a huge difference too, right? What you see in the UK, I'm in the US, those two markets can be really different. But even within the UK, you might have like hospitality might be really easy to hire for in, I'm just making this up, Glasgow. And really difficult to hire for in London. So there are regional differences, and I've seen lots of occasions over the years where employers will go to, say, a staffing company or a consulting company and basically say, hey, we're looking at opening a new warehouse. We're looking at opening a new factory. We're looking at opening a new restaurant. Where is the talent? I'm probably preaching to the choir. I think that's something that, like, the sister company, Reed, would probably be better at providing that kind of advice than like a typical job board. I
think that's fair. I think that there is some nuance to that, in the sense that I think businesses like ours, we have a much better handle on our data than we did sort of 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I guess there's definitely an opportunity for us to speak to customers about hotspots. So where are candidates growing, where are job volumes growing? So we can definitely provide insight and analysis there. And certainly from a staffing agency, so like our sister company, Reed Specialist Recruitment, would certainly have a very high understanding of areas of the UK where they are successfully placing candidates. And I guess that's one of the interesting differences between a service like ours and a recruitment agency, is the fact that we understand where delivering applications, but what we don't understand is where organisations are necessarily being successful in hiring. And obviously that's what a staffing company will be able to do. But I think the point that you made about geographical changes is really important. In the UK, we've seen a real change post-COVID, in the you were huge. Obviously, take London as an example. If you were recruiting in London, for the majority of jobs, you could do it pretty easily. I'm making it sound too simple, but there was a huge concentration of talent in London. Whereas what we know post-COVID is that actually people have dispersed, been geographically relocated around the UK. So actually, it's not as easy to recruit.
Whether you're a payroll pro or an employee wanting to understand your paycheck better, we've got you covered. Tune into It's About Payroll for expert insights on payroll trends and compliance, or check out It's About Your Paycheck, the go-to podcast for employees looking to understand their pay and rights. 2 great shows, 2 great hosts. Listen now. Brought to you by Work Defined, where payroll meets clarity.
Hospitality roles, for example, as it was 3 or 4 years ago. So actually, I think the picture has changed in that time. So I think people are going to have to consider not just where they open businesses, but actually where the is to be attracting talent are, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So in a difficult labor market, like we're still in, right? It's I think like you said, like it's become easier for employers as compared to say a year ago. But historically, you go back 10, 20 years, this is still one of the tightest labor markets, well, speaking for myself, old man, I guess you've been in it for 23 years. You're no spring chicken either. We've seen cycles. And this is still one of the more tight labor markets, whether it's the UK, whether it's the US, whether it's Argentina, pretty tight. What can employers do to stand out, to win that disproportionately large share of candidates?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of main things linking to the points that we've just discussed about the tight labour market, as you say. I think one is the fact that it's really important for employers to be able to articulate their employee value proposition. So if you're a candidate and you have your pick of businesses that you could potentially go and work for, that candidate will be thinking, well, what can the organisation give me? What does my career path look like? How are they going to invest in me? How am I going to learn and develop? I think that employer value proposition or employee value proposition becomes incredibly important. I think it's also about an organisation being able to articulate succinctly what their purpose, vision, mission is. So it's not just about what my comp and bends package looks like and do we have free fruit in the office. It's not about that. It's more around an individual being able to connect with the purpose of that organisation. And if I use Reed as a group of companies as an example, we have a very clear purpose, which is improving lives through work. So everyone who comes to work for any of the companies in our group understands what we're here to do, whether that be as a recruitment agent or whether that be as a salesperson in our business, it doesn't matter. We're all here to kind of fulfill that purpose. And that becomes a really important part of our value proposition. So when we're speaking to candidates, we're saying, well, this is what that means to us. This is how we connect with that. This is why what we're doing is important. So I think things like that become really, really critical as well. And I think probably more than that as well, it's about providing people an ability to have an affinity with your brand. And you don't have to be a FTSE 100 company and be a multinational with a huge brand. It's more about kind of tapping into what your brand means. Even if you're a small direct employer, there's something unique about your organization, unique about your business, about your workplace, again, what you're there to do. And I think if you can really display that, not just in words, but also in actions, I think that's another way that you can really make sure that you stand out from other people who are going to be, fighting with you for that one candidate that you're all really after.
Yeah, no, that's great. And when our leadership team at College Recruiter, when we periodically sit down, usually on an annual basis, and talk about like what makes us unique, it's not usually one thing, it's a collection. Like there are other job boards. There are other job boards that have this kind of pricing or whatever. But when you start to look at, where we're located and who we hire and how we deliver products, and you start to put all that together, then you have some uniques. And that's going to really attract some candidates. Awesome. And it's going to really discourage other people. It's like, that's not where I want to work. Yeah. And that's cool too. You don't want to start attracting applications from people who aren't going to stay with you. Even, if they're offered and if they accept and they start and then they quit 3 months later because it's just not a good fit. Better for those people never to apply to begin with. So before we leave off, this has all kind of helped me like dig down to one of the core issues that I want to talk to you about. And it's like, okay, so you've got these employers, the needs, the kinds of things that's standing out. If an employer just sort of calls up Reed and says, should I use the staffing side? Should I use the job board side? How does Reed help that employer figure that out? When should they use one versus another?
Yeah, they're a great question. And I think this comes down to maybe 3 core things, and then I'll talk about a blend. The first is, I think, it's their criticality, capability, and cost. I think they're the three things that a lot of it comes down to. So criticality is about how critical is it to my organization that I find this person to fill that role? What is the impact on my business of not having someone in that vacancy? And also, how quickly do I need that skill fit still completed? And the reason I use criticality as an important one is because there are some roles, if you're looking for a staffing agency that has a big temp provision is the place to go and do that. if you're looking for a real niche skill that is critical to your organization, then actually you might say, well, actually, I know that job site has an audience that looks like that. That's the right place for me to go. Or it might be, if it's critical that I find someone who has an incredibly high level of skill, that actually you might be better off going to a staffing agency rather than some job sites. That being said, we've recently filled a very senior role, a couple of very senior roles through our site, so it can be done through job site. So I think criticality is one piece. I think from a capability standpoint, it's probably twofold. One is, what capability do I have within my organization, and what capacity do I have as well? So, for example, am I a small direct employer that doesn't have an in-house recruitment team, that doesn't have the time and expertise to go and source candidates directly from a job site? You probably want to use a recruitment agency. Whereas if you have capability, if you have an in-house talent acquisition team that understand the jobs, that understand the skills that you're after, then actually a job site and direct hiring will probably be the right thing for you. I think it's really critically understanding the capability and capacity you have within your organization. And then it comes with the final C on this particular item. It's really, it's generally, it is cheaper to go and to use a job site than it is to use a recruitment agency. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily always the right thing to do. So depending on what your answers are to the kind of criticality and capability piece, it's about, what can I afford? What's my budget? Is the cost of going to an agency and paying 15, 20, 25%, is that a better expenditure than me spending 6 months trying to find that person? Is that more impactful to my organization? I think that's really important. And I think it's also about what value you put on that candidate, because if you can afford a recruitment agency, but at 15%, and the recruitment agencies you're dealing with are saying, well, because of that skill, it might be 20, 25%. It might be a case of saying, well, actually, I will try a job site first and see if I have success, and then use a recruitment agency afterwards, or do both at the same time. So I think there's definitely a time and a place for organizations to consider both and use both. And we, as a job site, just using us as an example of a direct employer in this instance, we use our own website naturally to recruit candidates, but we also use our sister company to help us find candidates as well, because we recognize that our site will be very attractive and very successful on a number of roles, but there might be roles that actually we're better off using a recruitment agency for. So I think it's about the understanding that blend, understanding your own internal structures and capabilities. I think that will go a long way to helping understand which path you can go.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I'm also glad that you made the point, Simon, that my word's not yours, but sometimes it's an all of the above, right? If you want to hire one person, I think there's a really good chance that you can do that through the agency or the job board. And sometimes one's going to make more. But Moy, if you're looking to hire 100 customer service people in the next 30 days, it's probably an all of the above scenario. So, well, fantastic. For people who want to learn more about read.co.uk, how should they reach you? LinkedIn, go to your website. What works best for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love people to reach out to me to find out more about us and what we do. So I'm on LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with me. If you want to have a browse around our site, visit read.co.uk and have a look around. But yeah, no, I think LinkedIn's probably the best way of getting hold of me if you'd like to have a chat, for sure.
Awesome. Well, Simon, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in person at maybe the next conference.
Absolutely. Thanks
Cheers.
a lot.